Hello everyone, it is Caitlin and today we are making an 1830s oiled silk rain hood. Alright, let's get started. So I'm going to use the 1847 bonnet pattern that we did on the channel ages ago for this project. I'm just going to modify it a little bit. So I'm going to make the brim wider simply because the Workwoman's Guide has a very wide brim, but it has like a 16-inch brim or 14 and 3/4 inch brim, something like that. It's just ridiculously long. And even folded back, like I don't want to fold a hood back that's oiled because the inside's not going to be oiled, so that wouldn't make any sense. You would get that part spotted, so it just didn't make sense. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it a little bit smaller. I know that this covers my face and goes out a little bit, so it's going to answer, you know, what it needs to answer. I'm just going to barely cut off maybe a 1/4 inch here, so kind of graduate it, even though the original is straight. You could do it straight because we are going to technically gather part of this in right here. For the brim, I am going to make this quite a bit taller. That's the one thing about the original Workwoman's Guide one that I didn't like, is because 1830s has really tall hair. There is no way my hair is fitting underneath that, so definitely wanted to change that slightly. And the Workwoman's Guide did say very clearly that their brim is different than the usual shape. And this is an 1838 pattern, so definitely whatever they showed was probably not what was used in the earlier 1830s. So I don't feel bad modifying it. This is a fairly typical shape for caps and other headwear with a really fullness. So I'm going to make it a little bit earlier. Now the pattern does not have seam allowances, so I need to remember to add seam allowances. I am using pink. It's leftover from Parasol. The Workwoman's Guide says black or some light color, and it does state that black is the better looking, but I don't have any black silk right now, and I didn't feel like I didn't have the time to go buy any more. This is a very last minute project. Just looking at an event and the weather for this weekend. It's going to be pouring down rain. Actually, every other day has it either sunny the whole day or pouring down rain all day long. It doesn't know what it's doing, honestly. And I think I want to line it with the same color, just not oil the inside. That sounds good. We're going to do that. So when I say oil, I'm not actually going to oil the silk. I've looked into that, and it's definitely an option. They use linseed oil, if I remember correctly. It's one of the recipes. If you do it right, you get a fairly waterproof, or at least water-resistant fabric. If you do it wrong, you get a highly, highly flammable object. And I always try for authenticity, but there is a point where safety does have to come into play. So like with cosmetics, I don't use any that include lead because that's not safe. That's an easier one because there's a period appropriate option that is safer. However, with this type of garment, there really is no period correct option that's really safe, and safety is important. So I'd rather not have something super flammable on my head. So we are going to use a modern, I guess, spray, waterproofing fabric spray, and that's what we're going to use to make our fabric waterproof. So I'm going to cut 2 sets of everything. One set's going to be waterproof. It did not say, the Workwoman's Guide did not say that the lining needs to be waterproof. It just said to line it with silk. So I'm going to use the same color silk. I'm just not going to waterproof the lining. In theory, it shouldn't have to be waterproof because the exterior should be so waterproof that nothing should get underneath. Again, adding seam allowances all over. I will say I am fully prepared for it not to rain. I just figured that if I didn't make this hood, it was going to pour all day. But I'm kind of thinking now that I'm putting forth the effort, it's probably not. The curtain is 1/2 yard deep, so 18 inches, and 1 3/4 long. Okay, we'll copy that part. 1/2 yard deep, which is 18 inches. Alright, we're going to make it a little narrower. It's going to be whatever this is. Also make it a little shorter too. 15 inches, but I would want like a white hem. I'm only going to cut one of these, I think, and I'll just hem it. We're also going to want a band which is 1 nail broad is 2¼ inches and 10 nails long, which is 25¼ inches, right? No, more than that. Wait, it's multiplied by 10. You just move the decimal place over, so it's 22.5 inches. Okay, so 22.5 inches, which seems really, really long. It's probably going to be shorter, but we're going to go ahead and cut it that long, and I'll figure out how long I need it later, because that's definitely going to be longer than I need it to be. Alright, now I'm going to iron all these pieces down, and I'm going to start spraying them with the waterproofing spray. Alright, let's get sewing. So in case you were curious, this is the stuff I use to waterproof the whole thing. It's the Scotch Guard Heavy Duty Water Shield stuff. Again, not very correct, but not flammable. So there's that. I think I told you wrong. I think I did this late last night. I think I cut 2 of these. Really only cutting one back. I only need one back. So this is the back I got, and this is the one I waterproofed. So I soaked the front of the fabric in the spray, let it dry completely, turned it around, soaked the other side, and so it's been done twice, which I just poured some water on the fabric and even like pressed down on the water trying to get it to seep through, and it wouldn't. So it looks to be fairly waterproof. We're going to start sewing. It didn't change the color at all, or very, very slightly. It kind of made it a little bit darker, but really, basically it's the same color. It does still have a smell to it. So I don't know when that's going to go away, but I'm just going to put in a gathering thread across the top of this crown. And I guesstimated where my gathering stitches were going to start. But I can measure this for y'all. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Around 7 inches in is where I'm going to start and stop the gathering thread. So I don't know if I mentioned before, but the weather report for the last 2 weeks, I've checked it every day. And every other day, it says that it's going to pour down rain. And every other day, aside from those, the days in between, it says it's not going to rain at all. So yesterday was a rain all day. Today is a not rain at all day. Tomorrow, I assume it's probably going to say it's going to rain. And then the event's the day after that. So hopefully that means it won't rain and I won't actually need to use this. But I did want to be prepared just in case, because I know if I didn't make this that it was definitely going to rain. That's just kind of how this tends to work. Now I have not decided on ties yet. I'm going to try it on once we make it and decide how the ties are going to be. Because I do have a little bit more of the spray. If I need to, oil some more silk, I can easily do so and make ties. I'm kind of hoping to use ribbon ties, and I could very well waterproof those, but I'm kind of hoping that the brim's going to be so wide that the ties are going to be safe. I'm also going to, just because the original pattern for the bonnet that we made has some ties coming across here and kind of gathering this up a little bit. I'm just going to gather it here to avoid having to do the ties. I think it's about 8 inches right now. It needs to be about 5.5. So just gather it up a little bit. The waterproofing doesn't seem to make it, more difficult to sew. I was very curious to see how it's going to, react to everything. So far, not a big shift in color. Doesn't make it difficult to sew. It just made it waterproof, which is kind of ideal. Alright, this piece is done for right now. I think next we're going to take the lovely crown bit, or isn't the crown bit, whatever piece this is, the curtain davolet thing. We're going to put up the hem. I have this on the selvage, so I'm not going to have to fold that under too much. I'm just going to leave it like that. What is that, maybe a 2-inch hem? I'm just going to do it like this. I think this end I'm just going to fold under maybe 1/2 inch and another 1/2 inch. And that might be it for prep work for right now. I'm going to leave this edge raw. That's the edge that's going to be sewn into the, I guess, the bottom of the brim and curtain, or brim and crown. Clearly my bonnet terminology needs some work. So I'm going to match the centers. So this needs to fit down here. Really probably could have started the gathering threads a few inches earlier, maybe like right here. So I might actually go ahead and, I have plenty of gathering thread. I'm going to cut out this knot and go ahead and sew down to that point. Yeah, it basically, I didn't really add anything to it. We're good. I think the way I had it before was best. So I'm not going to worry about this side. It just worked out. It didn't look like it was going to work out, but it did. Just making sure that it's all evenly distributed. You don't want a spot that has so many gathers and another part that has like 0. Now I'm going to back stitch this on to be really secure. So that's the end of the curtain. I was re-looking at the directions. Again, I cut this out really late last night, so I really don't need any lining at all. So I'll probably use the fabric I cut out as a hood, like a winter hood. We'll quilt it sometime. We'll cut it like into a nice little shape for maybe the 1850s and 60s, and do that. For now, we're going to make an unlined oiled silk hood. Now the directions is that you could hem or bind the edges of the curtain. I chose hemming because binding was going to require more silk, more oiled silk, so hemming was easier. So this is just into the crown. I've been back stitching it. And I guess no seams get covered because I was going to use the lining to cover most of the edges, and apparently that's not a thing, so I guess it is a very utilitarian. It is not a very fashionable garment. It's more everyday, not fancy, so I guess it really doesn't matter. And they rarely finish their edges anyway, so it'll work. Hopefully I won't have to wear it this weekend, but it'll be nice to have, just in case. Hemming, the brim was quite wide. It doesn't need to be that wide on me, so I'll get my tape measure, because it said it could be bound or hemmed. I'm going to hem it, since I have excess fabric anyway, about 1.5 inches, so I'll do a 1/2 inch and then a 1 inch. I might actually get done with this tonight, which would be awesome. I wouldn't have to worry about it tomorrow. I can just pack. That would be ideal. Let me see if I can do that. Alright, so we're going to put the band on this bonnet hood thing that we've created. I did opposite of what the Workwoman's guide said. It said to set the horseshoe shape plainly and then plate this. But I want this to be able to shade my face pretty well, and this was just a little bit too big. From working with the bonnet, I knew that it needed to be gathered in a little bit. So that's how I chose to do it. I attached the brim to the curtain, and now I'm just sewing this together, doing a back stitch. That's kind of it. So there's the top, there's a little band bit, and the very long curtain. Now the directions say to either cut another band of silk to line this part with, or to use ribbon. I'm going to use ribbon. I actually have just enough of this. It's like a pink/gold changeable ribbon. They were bonnet strings. For some reason I only have 1 and not 2. So I figured it's a good way to use a single bonnet string. Okay, it's actually pretty easy to just whip together, kind of cover those edges, because you will see that from the front, so definitely want that to be covered. Now I gotta figure out the closure situation. I'm thinking just for this weekend I might put some little twill tape ties, not make them fancy, because this is not a fancy garment, and just kind of do something for this weekend until I can do a little bit more research and figure out exactly what needs to be here. Very last step, I am putting on ties. I decided to do ribbon ties for right now until I figure out exactly what I need. It's a hood, and I do know from the 1840s to the 1860s, at least, hoods had ribbon ties. So this is the best I could come up with. I guess I could have made ties with the extra silk because I have plenty of extra silk, but this was easier and faster. But yeah, I don't think it's going to cover the sleeves. Now granted, we did cut it a little bit, narrower than the pattern called for, just because of the fabric constrictions. And it does definitely go over my shoulders, but just barely. So it's not going to go over the giant sleeves, but it may protect like top parts of it and everything. So, yep, there we go. And here's the hood. So, yeah, it worked really well. I took it to the event. It did rain. My hair was completely dry, so it completely worked. Yeah, so that's the good thing. I think it looks a little weird. I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm not a really big fan of sunbonnets either. I don't like not being able to see out the side of my face. I already have a hard enough time seeing as it is when I don't wear my glasses, so I don't necessarily need any help in that department. But yeah, I have it turned back a little bit so I can actually see camera a little bit better, but yes. Otherwise, it's very hard to see my face. But it does work. It works very well. So here's the back of it. You can see how much is actually covered by the hood itself. And so yeah, it works. That's all you can ask for it, right? Is that it works. And it is very much like a sunbonnet in the fact that I can just like put it over like that if it stops raining for a moment. So yes, it definitely got good use at the event. It works. Would I have preferred actual oiled silk? Yes, but flammable, not good things. So definitely on the safer side, it's passable. It looks like silk. I mean, it actually is silk. It's just the waterproofing method we used was not correct. Now, if you do use linseed oil, you can make it to where it's not as flammable. I just didn't necessarily trust myself first time off to make something that was going to be safe, and I needed it right away. So what I did was a compromise, safety, but still a period appropriate item. So not sure how I feel about the ties still. I think really they probably need to be made in the same silk. I think I have enough silk I could probably make it work a little bit later. But so all in all, a successful project. Glad I got it done. Not something I ever thought I was going to need, but I needed it for a particular event, and I needed it fast. For getting it done in like a day and a half or whatever it took, it was really, really good. And it works, and it's functional, and I have it in my wardrobe now should I ever need it again. Although this is Texas and we don't often have rain, and there's not often events that coincide with a few times we have rain. So likelihood of never using it again, not very high, but we have it, and if I need it again, it's there, which is always a good thing. So thank you so much for joining me today as we made our oiled silk hood. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you back here on Monday.